A Chanel bag just doubled in price. Your favorite sneakers? 46% more expensive. And that historic trade deal you heard about? Completely fake. Welcome to 2025, where global trade wars are destroying fashion runways, tanking luxury brands, and rewriting the rules of power. But here's what they're not telling you. What if I told you that the biggest economic disruption since the Great Depression is happening right now? Since February 2025.
We import from China massive amounts, and maybe we'll have to stop doing that. But I don't know exactly what it is. Neither do you. Neither does anybody. It's a little bit.
The United States has imposed tariffs at levels not seen since the 1930s. The result: luxury fashion stocks plunging overnight, manufacturers scrambling, and billions of dollars evaporating from the global economy. But behind the headlines of trade wars and tariff threats lies a darker truth. Fake deals, political theater, and a power struggle that's reshaping the world. Today, we're exposing how fashion became a weapon, why most trade deals are just smoke and mirrors, and who's really winning this economic war. Let's dive in. April 2nd, 2025, the White House Rose Garden. President Trump announces what he calls Liberation Day, the most comprehensive tariffs in nearly a century. The fashion industry watches in horror as the hammer drops. Vietnam, the second biggest apparel exporter to the U.S., hit with a 46% tariff. Cambodia faces 49%. Bangladesh, 37%. China gets slammed with 54% total. The European Union, home to luxury fashion's biggest houses, 20%. Switzerland, where the world's finest watches are made, 31%. The response is immediate and brutal. Within hours, fashion stocks are in freefall. Lululemon drops over 10%. Nike and Ralph Lauren down 7%. Luxury giants like LVMH, Kering, and Prada plunged 20% to 26% in a single month. But here's what makes this different from any previous trade war. For years, fashion brands had been diversifying away from China to avoid earlier tariffs. They moved production to Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangladesh, Mexico, spent millions restructuring their supply chains. And now? All those countries got hit too. Years of strategic planning, destroyed overnight. The numbers are staggering. Analysts predict apparel prices in the U.S. could jump 64% in the short run and stay 27% higher permanently. The luxury sector, which was already struggling with weak demand in China, was counting on wealthy Americans to fuel recovery. That plan just evaporated. LVMH's first quarter revenue dropped 2%. Their fashion division fell 4%. Brands like Chanel, Gucci, and Cartier started raising U.S. prices in March, trying to get ahead of the tariffs. But there's a limit to how much even luxury brands can charge before customers walk away. The impact ripples through the entire supply chain. Walmart is demanding suppliers cut costs. Factories operating on razor-thin margins are being squeezed harder. Textile makers and farmers are all feeling the pressure as everyone scrambles to cut prices. And here's the cruel irony. The U.S. receives 97% of its clothing and shoes from other countries. These aren't products America makes anymore. So these tariffs? They're attacks that American consumers will pay directly. But don't worry, the president says he's making deals. Historic deals, the best deals. Except here's the problem. Most of them aren't real. In July 2025, Trump announced a massive energy deal with the European Union. $250 billion a year in fossil fuel exports for 3 years. Headlines everywhere. One problem, it's completely impossible. Experts immediately called it fiction. The EU imported about $65 billion worth of energy total last year. The US cannot possibly supply $250 billion annually without massive disruption to American markets. A commodities strategist at ING Bank told the Wall Street Journal the numbers are just not realistic. Then there's the Canada situation. In October 2025, Trump announced he was ending all trade negotiations with Canada. because Ontario ran an advertisement featuring Ronald Reagan's words criticizing tariffs. He called the ad fake and fraudulent. Except Reagan actually did say those things. He often criticized tariffs and protectionist measures. The Reagan Foundation confirmed it. But that didn't matter. Trump terminated talks anyway. The entire thing was political theater. Or consider Italy. Trump shared a video on social media claiming Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni was defying the EU to strike a direct trade deal with the US. The video went viral. Thousands of shares. One problem, it was AI generated. Complete fabrication. The voice was fake. The claims were fake. Everything was fake. Under EU rules, individual countries can't even negotiate separate trade deals. Trade is an exclusive responsibility of the EU. Italy's government denied the whole thing. But the damage was done. A Trump insider admitted to reporters that tariff deadlines are all fake. There's no deadline. It's a self-imposed landmark in this theatrical show. By late April 2025, Trump had reached his symbolic 100-day mark in office with 0 completed trade deals. 0. Despite claiming a lot of big wins were coming, nothing materialized. Genuine trade deals take years to negotiate because they require painful political concessions. But this administration was treating them like real estate transactions, expecting quick results through intimidation and threats. So what's actually happening here? This isn't really about trade, it's about power. And China is winning. In 2025, the US imposed a 145% tariff on Chinese goods. China responded with 125%. Most people thought China would buckle under the pressure. They were wrong. Instead, China demonstrated something terrifying. They're prepared to match every American escalation and make the US back down. In October 2025, China announced expanded export restrictions on rare earth metals. These are critical materials used in everything from smartphones to electric vehicles to military equipment. China controls the global supply. And for the first time, they're using it as a weapon, not just against the US, but against other countries too. Experts called it a power play ahead of a planned Trump-Xi meeting. The message was clear. China has decided the leverage is on their side. The trade war has exposed a fundamental shift in global power. 20 years ago, intimidating Beijing might have worked. Today, China is a superpower that can hurt the US as much as the US can hurt China. Their GDP grew 5.2% despite the tariffs. How? Government support, increased infrastructure spending, consumer subsidies, and front-loading shipments before tariffs hit. Meanwhile, projections show the US economy would contract by 1% due to the tariffs, with real wages declining by 1.4%. Canada faces a 2% loss, Mexico 2.7%, Ireland 3%. Even countries barely involved are suffering. China's manufacturing dominance proved decisive. They don't need the US market as desperately as American companies need Chinese production. And here's the kicker. Chinese manufacturers are now flooding social media, particularly TikTok, urging American consumers to buy knockoff luxury goods directly from their factories. Why pay for the real Birkin when we made it, they say. The Chinese wholesale marketplace DHgate jumped to number 2 on the US Apple App Store. The tariffs aren't stopping Chinese goods, they're just changing how they reach American consumers. Meanwhile, real people are paying real costs. Canadian luxury platform Sense filed for bankruptcy protection, citing tariffs as a key factor. The end of duty-free small packages means every cross-border shipment to US customers now gets taxed. 88 global postal operators suspended operations to the US until they figure out how to handle packages halted due to unpaid customs charges. The resale market is booming because people can't afford new luxury goods anymore. Sellers are offloading collections to make money, while buyers are choosing second-hand to avoid tariffs. Manufacturing jobs aren't coming back to America despite claims. A CNBC survey found that even if manufacturing moves back, 81% of companies expect automation will be favored over workers. high costs will keep them from reshoring. The sectors most exposed to tariffs, durable goods manufacturing, mining, and agriculture, are seeing the biggest employment declines. The trade war is creating a permanent structural shift from trade-exposed sectors to lower-wage service jobs. The World Trade Organization warned that global trade could contract by 1.5% in 2025, with North America seeing the greatest slowdown. Uncertainty around trade policy alone causes firms to delay investments, reducing trade flows and slowing economic growth. And the corruption potential is massive. With no transparency in negotiations, there's enormous opportunity for sweetheart deals for billionaire buddies and politically connected businesses. Brazil got hit with a 50% tariff, but nearly half of their exports are exempted, including airplanes for aviation giant Embraer and orange juice that supplies 90% of the US market. Who's deciding these exemptions? Nobody knows. There's no oversight, no transparency. So here's the truth they don't want you to know. The tariffs aren't bringing jobs back. The deals are mostly fake. The economic damage is real and lasting. And while politicians play power games, ordinary people watch prices soar, jobs disappear, and opportunities vanish. China isn't backing down. They're stronger than ever. The fashion industry is in crisis, and the global economic order is being reshaped not by strategy, but by chaos. The next time you see a headline about a historic trade deal, ask yourself, is this real or is this theater? Because in 2025, the line between the two has completely disappeared. If this opened your eyes to what's really happening, hit that subscribe button. We're cutting through the noise to show you the truth. What do you think happens next in this trade war? Drop your predictions below. Until next time, stay informed. Would you like me to make a version in full AP style, e.g. 25% simplified to 25% or 46% to 46%, but keeping consistency with journalistic standards?